Thank you, and welcome to this class on Finnish naming practices. I am going to at first take a bit of a look on what's Finland, what's Finnish, and give an overview of the two different name systems that were in used in Finland in period, and then go on to do a comparison between two different provinces in late period. And just so you know, the castle behind me is the Tavastehus castle, which is happily on my commute from home to work. But Finland, it's a part of Scandinavia, wasn't a country of its own until way post-period. The language I'm primarily talking about is Finnish, which is not related to any of the Indo-European languages, even though it has been that there have been contacts since roughly the Proto-Indo-European times, that is quite close to 10,000 years on and off. Finland is roughly the area shown on the map there. So pretty much the overseas eastern provinces of Sweden. Finnish, the language, is usually divided into several phases, three of the earliest fitting into our period. The division between these periods is mainly done based on the availability of written sources. And since there are comprehensive written texts only from the very end of our period, most of the onomastic documentation and evidence comes from documents written in other languages and from onomastic analysis of place names and that sort of evidence. There have been roughly three Finnish distinct personal name systems that we can see looking back. The two earliest of them fit into our period. So that roughly the dividing line between them is the establishment of the Swedish state and the Catholic Church in this area. So to start from the earlier one, the ancient system that predates Christianity and a state in the modern sense of statehood covers the area from roughly the 13th century back. And linguistically speaking, it covers the area from Proto-Finnic to early Finnish. So in a sense, it's shared by Finnish, Estonian, Karelian, and this set of related languages. But there are no written documents from this area or that time period, so it's pretty much prehistoric. Still, there are some studies enough to make SCA registration possible for people who want a Finnish persona that could have interacted with either Vikings or in the case of the Proto-Finnic era with people like Goths or the early Baltic peoples. So this name system was likely based on single names in the sense that there were no systematic surnames, but instead one given name and then bynames as necessary. These given names were to a large extent dithematic, in the same way as that Germanic names were, although the name elements were mostly indigenous. Detlef Eckart Stöbke, in his 1964 dissertation, considers this type indigenous just because the name elements were. Viljo Nissilä, who was professor of onomastics at Helsinki University at the time, thinks or thought this is a structural loan from our Germanic neighbors. I'm not sure, but in any case, this is what we had. So we had a bunch of given names that were compounds, but we also had names that had largely the same elements as monothematic names. Stöbke has a nice table of all the variants with the monothematic roots, with a variety of options for the final vowel, and a number of derivational suffixes that were used to form these names, and a number of second parts of these dithematic names. And for our purposes, the names he suggests as certainly or probably or possibly Proto-Finnic are good enough because he has found examples of these in period records. So every one of these names is in some form documented from early period documents, although he has normalized the name forms to Proto-Finnic or late Proto-Finnic. And now that I'm looking at the chat window, yes, Hungarian is about as closely related to Finnish as English is related to Sanskrit. Finnish and Estonian are about as closely related as, say Swedish and Icelandic. A bit more different than Swedish and Danish, but about their so the names Stöbke lists are not all we have, though there's some evidence from later period by names and place names that didn't get to his thesis, and there are also several hypothesized names in the earlier PhD thesis on Finnish names, but that one was written in late 19th century, so you have to have more than just one grain of salt reading that. But it's likely that people had used animal names at least occasionally as given names or other names from nature. There are also some mythological names that are listed in a 1551 list of ancient Finnish gods, but that were evidently actually used by humans as well. But these examples go to the area where it's not exactly clear if the evidence is sufficient for SCA registrations. So using the examples Stöbke has is pretty safe if you want an early period Finnish names. Mostly no this there are some later period by names that look patronymic, but not but that's 16th century is already a time where Finnish and Estonian practices have diverged quite a bit, but we get to that a bit later. The given names in this early system likely were not exactly constant. There are some later examples where where a person was using different forms of the same same name root in different documents, and some practices like this have transferred to the next system of names as well. Also, while Stöbke lists meanings for the given names, the meaning probably wasn't super important. People were named after their family members, and it seems likely that some of the early names were not even semantically transparent when they were used as names. Also, we don't know exactly how strongly these names were gendered, because all the evidence we have comes from early period sources where that are really sparse, and so there are just about no women's names. Although there are a couple of suffixes that seem to be either exclusive or just about for female names. And by names were used as necessary. So patronymic, descriptive, and locative bynames are likely to have been used, but it's probable that these came before the given name. Similarly to how in even modern Hungarian the surname comes before the given name. So this is something that may well be a common or a part of the common Finno-Ugric heritage. And then, as I said, came Christianity. The church got adjectives precede the nouns, but also the Finnic genitive construction has the possessor first and the possessed afterwards. So yeah, even patronymics and locative bynames it's not really that simple. Finnish has something like 15 different cases in the nominal declination, but if I went to that I would have to continue this class for another hour or so. So sorry. As a short answer, it's as far as I can remember, it's the same as in or similar to Hungarian. So anyway, around late 12th century, early 13th, the church started to establish itself and transform the way people were named, and this continued to, or this happened pretty rapidly. Although some of the old style names were still in use for almost 2 centuries. So that there's a famous excommunication bull from 1340 that still has a couple of the old style names. While these belong to the pre-Christian system, at this point it's not really right to call them pre-Christian or pagan anymore, because these people were clearly Christian. No point excommunicating a pagan for refusing to pay his church tax. So this was a part of a large-scale social upheaval where the church reached, or the organized church reached Finland, and also the Swedish state formed, and Finland was, or the Western Finnish provinces were part of that process. And so mostly it was a religious thing that led to a change in how name giving and therefore names were seen. And then we get to a system that is very close to what was used in the Swedish-speaking provinces, even though the name forms themselves were Finnish. What makes this a bit difficult for our purposes is that the names were documented or written down mostly in Swedish, but they were used by the people themselves in Finnish. And that is one of the reasons why the orthography varies a lot. So the normal, what one would expect is the kind of variation where Vincentius was written with both a T and an S. That sort of variation happens everywhere in period. What's typical for Finnish is that there are occasional cases where markedly Finnish forms are recorded as well, so that the hintsa there refers to the same person as the two others. And again, like in the earlier system, and like in pretty much everywhere else in Europe, by names were were used as needed, and they could change so that one farmer was named Morten Eriksson in one document, Morten Hintsikkalan, which is an interesting hybrid form, because Finnish word order would be Hintsikkalan Martti or something like that. And the Morten Mälkilä, they all refer to the same person as well. And some of the by names are getting close to what was talked about in the obscene names class earlier on, like Henrik Lihasuu. That's not really a flattering by name, and that actually has survived in a village name. The whole village was named after the by name. These examples are from the western part of the country. But Eastern Finland was mostly similar. So there were single given names recorded. There were patronymic descriptive by names, and also these pre-Christian given names used as by names. But one of the known differences between Eastern and Western Finland is that in the East, people were using clear surnames in period as well, and that's a different thing from the case in the West, where a by name could pass from one person to another across generations. The Eastern names are clearly intended to be the names of families instead of by names. Yeah. Just getting to my next slide. In late period, virtually all the given names appear on the calendar of saints. Although not all saints' names were used by people. One of the notable examples is Saint Mary, who was across all Sweden considered too holy to give her name to mere mortals. Once you get to Denmark, there that name appears in period documents as well. Largely, the names were a subset of the calendar that was used as names in the neighborhood. So that, for instance, there is a farm where in successive records one can find Morten Henriksson, then a Henrik Mortensson, and then a Henrik Hindersson, so that we know that of the four farmers in line, where we have 3 Henrys and one Martin. Also, there is a very strong correlation to the patron of the local parish church, and the patron saints of the larger entities were used pretty commonly as well. But since there are significant differences between Eastern and Western Finland in a variety of ways, in culture, in language, even genetics, the genetic difference between Eastern and Western Finland, or the border, is among the sharpest in Europe. And that these differences exist in name systems as well. No, I don't. Offhand, I don't. I don't remember any more of these reserved names. But yeah, Jesus isn't used either. So anyway, I wanted to look a bit deeper into the difference between Eastern and Western Finland. Took 2 tax registers from just after 1550. This map shows roughly the areas where the data comes from. And started looking what can be seen in it. There are some limitations in the data. First of all, since it's the 2 tax records, it only lists the landowners, although it's not entirely clear how much this affects it. Data from judicial records suggests that the names of landless people didn't differ that much from that of the farmers themselves. Also, the format of a tax record might or does affect the choice of by names, at least to the extent that probably the frequencies of different types of by names is not the same here as in say court cases. Although again, pretty much all the types of names appear here as well. And the largest limitation here is that there is only one woman in this data. and even she was very much not a common person. Her ex had just become the king of Sweden. Let's put it this way. So all in all, there are 56 different given names that appear in this data set, and they are listed in these tables normalized as is customary in Finnish history. The article that will appear in the proceedings does have appendixes that have the documentary forms, so don't fret too much. In the Eastern set, the most common name, Peter, has about 15% of the people covered already, and in the Western set, Olaf has almost 10%, and then it goes down from there. And there are also two cases in the Eastern set that have only a by name. The names seem to follow the so-called Ziff law reasonably closely. That's one of the basic power laws that describes the relationship between word rank and word frequency. And for the not so common names, it holds very well. The most common names are more common than expected, because there is this area effect of say some of the local saints, for instance, being considered rather more suitable for naming people. All in all, the Eastern and Western datasets are rather similar in terms of given names. The patron saints of Scandinavia and Finland are high on the list. The one of Sweden less so. I don't really have an explanation for that, but still, the most common names are common in both datasets, although their rank does vary quite a bit. Let's say from first to 10th, you get a lot of jumping around between the two, and that is likely because of the local traditions and saints. Also, some name forms are different in in the east and west. So that for instance, the name Jacob he is listed in the Western datasets pretty much exclusively with the first syllable intact, while in the East we get Finnish forms where the first syllable has been dropped. Similarly, in the West we have varieties of Johannes where the second syllable has been dropped, and that's something that appears in the Swedish-speaking provinces as well. While in the East that doesn't happen. On the other hand, there forms like Hans, where the first syllable is dropped, are more common. Unlike Sweden, but like Germany. There are no Russian names in the Eastern set, although that is an expected result because Savonia, where these come from, was a clearly Swedish province. The next province eastward would have been contested between the two countries, so there one would have expected more Russian influence. Then there are two people in the Eastern set that don't have a clear given name listed in the tax records. There is one listed as the old farmer, which is kind of an interesting way to tax someone. And then there's one Hiiva Järveläinen, the Hiiva likely containing the word that currently means yeast, but in that time period and region would have meant hops. So that's likely a nickname given to him for being a notorious drunk or something. As for by names, about 3% of the people are listed without any kind of by name. In the West, most have a patronymic, and that is, I believe, partly because of the customs of writing tax records, because while patronymic by names are common in other material, they are not quite that overwhelmingly common. The Eastern frequency of about quarter of the people having a patronymic is however less than what's commonly seen in Western court cases. Not too many of the people have locative bynames. Partly, I think, because these are tax records and sorted by the village and farm. But it's noteworthy then that the Eastern dataset hasn't got a single locative byname in it. On the other hand, the Eastern dataset has about as many family names as the Western one has patronymics. So that seems to be the common way to refer to people in the East. But there are it might be worth noting that the dataset may include one case of a person having two locative bynames. It's somewhat debatable, but it appears reasonably likely that this person was listed with both his home village and a lake that was among his hunting grounds as his bynames. But the Eastern family names were something of a surprise. It was known that they were used in the East, but 9 out of 10 people is very much more common than what I expected. And quite a few of these surnames are names that are still in use and have been consistently used since late 17th century, from where we have systematic baptismal records. All right, let's see, where was I? I was just getting to the end of the thing. So most of the Eastern family names follow a pattern that has survived to the present, which is basically an adjective derived from something that usually is a personal name. And we are pretty sure these are hereditary surnames, since they appear to be used in that manner in 16th century records. And after a bit of a gap in the records, when we have consistent baptismal records from late 17th century onwards, they are quite consistently used as surnames. Then there are other by names like occupational or descriptive. And sometimes there are these pre-Christian personal names used as by names. And then some animal names as well. An interesting case is these grouses. There is a Henrik Vähäpyy in this data set. In the same farm in the previous generation, there is a Mats Pyy, and then there's a Henrik Isopyy in the neighboring farm. So there's the little grouse and the big grouse farming two farms in the same village. And that's the kind of thing that happens when we have by names that are hereditary or inherited, but not really family names as such. And then, of course, there are people who have just a given name listed. But all in all, there appears to be a clear systemic difference where in the West, a person has a given name and a by name. In these tax records usually patronymic, but in practice also very commonly a locative by name. And it's these locative by names that later went on to develop into a number of family names in Western Finland. While in the East, given names are usually accompanied by a family name that's clearly a family name. So something that's vanishingly rare in the Western set. And that difference is quite possibly because of or differences in the farming culture. Western Finland had fixed farms where people lived, while in the East people practiced slash and burn agriculture until way out of our period. So they didn't associate themselves with a farm, but rather with a family. Also, the given plus patronymic format of Western Finland might to some extent be a cultural loan from the Swedish-speaking provinces, at least in how common it was. But the bottom line is I think it's pretty clear that we can talk about Eastern and Western Finland having distinct, although closely related personal name systems in late period. So thank you. That was pretty much what I had to say today. And yes, a copy of the slides is already on the symposium website. I will be sending a revised version to Frida later on. I'm afraid I did make a few changes in the last week, but yeah, you will get a more up-to-date set later on, and also the comparison of the Eastern and Western system is going to become an article for the symposium proceedings. Also, the slide set has a few links to literature that might be useful for managing Finnish names. So that's it for now. Thank you. And it's now 9 o'clock in the morning for me.
I will turn off recording if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay.